a leading Republican, Senator Judd Gregg, serving on the Banking Committee. Senator, thanks very much for being with us. I know that it took a couple of days to get past those cloture votes. Why did Republicans decide that it was time to let debate start?
Well, I think we decided because we had gone as far as we could at the negotiating table. Originally, we weren't at the negotiating table. And then when we insisted on being there were negotiations that occurred between Senator Shelby and Senator Dodd, and very significant progress was made on this very big issue, which is too big to fail. No company should be too big to fail. No company should expect that the American taxpayer is going to come in and bail it out. And we wanted to make sure the language was as strong in that area as possible. We've now got very strong language in that area. There are a lot of other issues, however, that are still have to be addressed to make sure we do this regulation right, and we should do it, and we should do it right. But they weren't going to be addressed in negotiations because of the differences between the parties, so it just seemed best to go to the floor and offer our amendments and see where we go.
Was there any impact from the political climate, given the hostility to Wall Street, the anger, the Goldman hearings? Did that make it just not feasible to hold out and to just say, well, we'll deal with this on the floor with amendments, or you can always filibuster the amendments?
Well, I think we had always planned to go to the floor and work on amendments. At least I had. I mean, I feel very strongly we need a good bill here, and I think it's critical that we have a good bill. I've made the point all along that what we want is a new regulatory regime and a new management regime of the financial sector, the financial services sector, which will reduce the chances for a systemic problem occurring like we had at the end of 2008. But at the same time, we want to maintain our unique competitiveness as a nation in the ability to create credit and create capital, because really what keeps our country going economically is that people get ideas, they go out, they take risks, they're entrepreneurs, and they create jobs. And to do that, they have to have capital and credit. And I want to make sure we do this right, that we don't chill the capital and credit markets unnecessarily.
Tell me about your concerns about where the derivative argument stands right now, given what came out of the Agriculture Committee, Blanche Lincoln, a tougher bill than the White House had even proposed.
Well, the agriculture bill, unfortunately, would actually make the credit markets, the derivatives markets, I think, weaker, and actually create more of a potential for systemic risk for a variety of reasons. There are two primary ones. Number one, they require that the swap desk be spun off from the financial houses. The problem with doing that is it doesn't work. You'd have to come up with, those desks would have to come up, if they're independent, with huge amounts of capital, which they probably wouldn't, and therefore that derivative business would either A, contract, or B, go overseas, neither of which would be good for us as a nation, and it's not necessary. It's really a punitive action, really not necessary in order to correct the derivatives markets. What we need to do to correct the derivatives markets is make sure that derivatives are, one, more transparent, and number two, that they have a situation where capital and liquidity and margin is in place, so that the derivatives, so that the counterparties, if they have a problem, have something standing behind them. And you do that through clearinghouses, aggressively using clearinghouses. And number three, to the extent you can do it, you move items to exchanges. But one of the problems with, again, the agriculture bill was that it moved everything that went on a clearinghouse had to go on an exchange. The market's not ready for that. It couldn't handle that, and more importantly, it would undermine Main Street, because remember, these derivatives are essentially used to ensure the ability of companies that manufacture things on Main Street America, the ability to sell those products in the international community or throughout the United States, and ensure over risks that they don't control, like monetary fluctuations, the price of their commodities that they're buying to put into the goods that they're making, or the risk relative to borrowing money. So they are very important products for good commerce and for having liquidity in the markets.
I wanted to ask you about the political development of the day, which of course is in Florida with Charlie Crist. You are a fiscal conservative, but you are considered a moderate Republican from the Northeast. What does it say about the Republican Party that someone like Charlie Crist cannot survive in the Republican Party and is going to become an independent?
Well, I don't think that's what it says, really. I think what it says is that Charlie Crist was in a tough primary and decided he probably wasn't going to win, so he decided to choose another course of action. You know, I don't know Charlie Crist. I've met him once. I don't know Mr. Rubio. I've never met him. But my sense is that primaries, you know, tend to be tough fights. I've been through a few, and I know they are. And really, if you think you can't win and you decide to step out of a primary, that's your choice. But I don't think it's a reflection on the party. I think the fact that we've got somebody like Mr. Rubio running, who has this really amazing story, quite honestly, who's Cuban-American, has come up from basically in the classic American tradition of coming up from very humble means to be a leader in his state, shows that we've got a pretty broad tent, and we have a lot of diversity and a lot of good people running for office.
Okay, Judge Gregg, thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks, and good to see you. And up